Welcome to Walpole Five-0. I'm Chief John Carmichael. Today is July 10th, 2018, and as usual, before we get into the law, a couple things to mention. 3rd of July, the parade and the fireworks went off without a hitch. An outstanding job by the Walpole Fire Department in putting that parade and fireworks on, a huge tradition here in Walpole. I really appreciate all of the Walpole police officers who came in on their days off and worked so that we could actually have that event take place. It takes probably about 30 to 35 police officers just to accommodate that type of an event, large-scale event in Walpole, and I appreciate all of their efforts. It was a very busy night for us. It usually is. We did have several arrests as well as some other issues, and we try and use good discretion on that particular night. But there were some things that we really couldn't avoid, and as such, I'll get into that a little bit. But in any event, it was a great event, and I know families enjoyed themselves that night, and we appreciate the efforts of everybody involved. Moving on to the Walpole Police Junior Police Academy, we just finished our first class, 2018-01. An amazing group of kids, 38 kids graduated from our police academy, which went 1 week. Those are kids going into 7th and going into 8th grade. And we have another class that's going to be starting up. Tonight is actually the orientation, July 10th here at the police station at 6 o'clock. And then that class will be starting July 16th through the 20th. For our second class, who also has about 38 kids in that one as well. And it's been a great experience. One of our ways to engage youth in the town of Walpole. And we did a lot of different events last week in this academy. We did some field trips to Gillette Stadium, to TD Garden in Boston. We did we did bike patrol, we did investigations, we did drug and alcohol awareness and prevention. We did different things throughout the week as far as drill and ceremony so that the kids understand some sense of discipline and teamwork. And it was a great job by the students as well as the police officers. And we shuffle in probably most of the department, probably 30 to 35 police officers during the week so that the kids all get to meet each officer specifically and get to know them. And it's a great thing. I'm really glad that we started doing this program, and we hope to continue them in the future. You probably noticed that I have a cast on my arm, and this is the result of the academy because one day we did some bike patrol where the kids at the end are put through a series of tasks in bike patrol, and they're timed. And at the end we have the kids drop the bike and they run and they tag us out. And as a result, I was running from one of the kids, stepped off the curb, tore my hamstring, fell and broke my wrist. So that's the story behind that. But I do appreciate all the kids signing my cast, so appreciate that. Okay, so moving on to the log, on June 26th, there was an arrest. 27-year-old male was stopped on Coney Street for failed to stop at the stop sign. We do post up on there on occasion. You'll notice that when you come off 95 southbound into Walpole onto Coney Street, there is a stop sign there. People like to blow that one quite frequently, therefore causing crashes, and we do some enforcement up there on occasion. That's what this operator did. He failed to stop that stop sign, was subsequently stopped by Officer Giblin, and during that, the operator was arrested for unlicensed operation. And during the search incident to arrest, the officers did find some types of drug inside of the vehicle. The individual prescribed that that the bag had contained marijuana. And in any event, it was inconclusive. We didn't charge that person with any possession or anything like that, but was charged with the unlicensed operation and failed to stop for the stop sign. Breaking and entering, Officer Beeman responded to an area on Route 1 for breaking and entering to a motor vehicle. Window was broken, car rummaged through, nothing stolen that was of value. These are smash and grabs. We do have these occasion and most often on Route 1. So I know like the hockey rink, the mall areas on Route 1 that are easily accessible to the highway, we will have a series of smash and grabs. Typically when they happen in neighborhoods, more often than not, There are people that are entering open motor vehicles that are unsecure, but once in a while we do have the smash and grabs. On July 3rd, the night of the parade and the fireworks, protective custody, a 28-year-old female, placed in protective custody following a disturbance call. On arrival, the officers, that person ran out into the street. They were flailing their arms at the officers. The officers determined that that person was not likely to care very well for themselves, and as a result, they put that person in protective custody. An arrest of a 20-year-old female. We received a report of a fight. There was several disturbances like this right in the center of town. Prior to the fireworks starting, officers responded. They observed a female punching another victim in the crowd. As a result, this was obviously causing some distress with some of the families that were trying to attend peacefully. As a result, that person was disturbing the peace, in addition to an assault and battery in the presence of Detective Toland and other officers. And as a result, that person was arrested and charged with disturbing the peace and assault and battery. A protective custody, a 34-year-old male was placed in protective custody. This is following a report of a fight on Walpole Common. One individual took off on foot, and this caused officers to have to pursue that individual. He was then stopped. At some point, he turned on officers, clenched his fists, and as a result, was ordered to comply with the officer's demands, and he was essentially placed in protective custody by Detective Sullivan. And we appreciate him not becoming physical, because that could have been not just a protective custody, which is not a charge, not a criminal charge, but it could have resulted in criminal charges if it had taken to the next step. So a protective custody arrest. So relative to that incident, there was another individual, a 43-year-old male from Mansfield. He was involved in that altercation. That individual was spoken to by Officer Haber, Henneberry, and Murphy. And after being released by the officers, that individual began to yell and scream profanities at the officers in the presence of children, in the presence of families that are trying to mind their own business and enjoy the fireworks about to begin. And as a result, they reapproached that individual. He also clenched his fists and assaulted the officers, at which time they placed him onto the ground. He attempted to bite Officer Murphy, however, this individual was subdued, placed in handcuffs, and transported back to the station without further incident. Unfortunately, these events, there's alcohol being consumed, and sometimes people making less than sound decisions, and as a result, we really couldn't avoid some of these situations that happened that night. Moving on to July 4th, there was a disturbance in Morgan baseball field. Party reported that the motor vehicle was struck by a baseball. Officers responded, parties were all set, peace restored there. A larceny, caller reported a license plate stolen while they were at Walmart. It's a Florida registration. Y as in Yankee, 13, C, Charlie, R, Romeo, U, uniform. That was the plate that was taken and stolen off of that victim's motor vehicle. We have not found that plate. Arrest. Route 1 store reported, a victim reported an indecent assault and battery. The victim had been approached by a male while they were in the toy section of the store. A man had been following her around the store, the victim, and at some point walked up behind the victim, grabbed her hips, and touched his body to hers in a sexual manner. Officer O'Connor spoke to that victim, and subsequently they walked around the store, and that victim was able to identify the man inside of the store who hadn't left yet, and we arrested him for indecent assault and battery of a person over 14 years of age. That person, once brought back to the police station and given Miranda warnings, did admit to being attracted to that person, wanted to meet her, and unfortunately he chose to deal with that situation by being physical, and as a result he was arrested as 39-year-old male from Mattapan. Disturbance, neighbor dispute at 686 Wash. There's a report of loud music. Officers responded and parties were spoken to. Peace restored. Suspicious motor vehicle, report of a suspicious motor vehicle with New York plates in the area of 644 Main Street. The vehicle was located in the CVS parking lot. The operator was found to be homeless and typically will be transient and move around to different areas and park his vehicle because of being homeless. And by the way, we do, when we deal with people like that, we typically will stop and offer them assistance through the, like transitional assistance, and try and get them some resources for the difficulties of them being homeless. Disturbance, report of juveniles in the area of a common street, possibly intoxicated. Officers did check that area and the individuals are gone on arrival. July 5th, overdose. Individual was found to have overdosed. This was a situation that resulted in a fatality. I will say that so far in the year 2018, we have had 2 overdose fatalities and about 18 total overdoses for this year. And while that is extremely unfortunate, because one is one too many, we've looked back at, since 2016, we had 9 fatalities for the year. And then in 2017, we dropped that number down to, I believe it was 6. And then now, here in 2016, so far, we've had 2. And our condolences always go out to these families. I know it's very difficult to deal with substance use disorder. And I've said plenty about that, but it is good news that I think that we're seeing less fatalities. We're still seeing the overdoses, but because of naloxone, because of the resources that are more available now, we're able to kind of deal with that prevention side of things a little bit better, and hopefully we'll continue to see that trend. On July 6th, there was a suspicious person on Washington Street. The caller reported it was a pickup truck that was in their driveway. There's an unknown male individual in that vehicle, sleeping in a mattress in an unoccupied garage. We were unable to contact the landlord of that property that's located there. Officer Powers and Wilmot did arrive, and that person had left. We were able to identify that person as somebody being from Abington, Massachusetts, and the follow-up is occurring by Officer Wilmot and Powers. Protective custody, report of a disturbance. On arrival, we found a 51-year-old female unable to care for herself due to intoxication, and therefore that person was placed into protective custody. Threats and an arrest. On Friday, the Walpole Police Department, this was on July 6th, the Walpole Police Department received a report from the Walpole Times that there was a threat that was made against one of their reporters. It appears that this situation involves a female, 64-year-old female from Shutesbury, Massachusetts, which is out towards Amherst. It's in Hampshire County. There were some emails that were sent to the Walpole Times and specifically identified that reporter and specifically identified mechanisms of shooting the building and shooting the individual through the windows of the Walpole Times. Because of the specifics of the case, we felt that there was some credibility to it, especially in light of what just happened in Maryland at the Capital Gazette, where 5 people were shot during an active shooter situation. And we have to take these things seriously. The Walpole Times took it seriously. The victim came forward and reported it. We contacted the court, who subsequently issued an arrest warrant for what is known as, it's under the bomb threat statute, but what we commonly refer to it as terroristic threats. And that's any time that somebody either directly or indirectly makes a threat towards somebody, whether it be in person or whether it be through electronic communication, that person is threatened with a weapon, i.e. the shooting and the firearm, and that this threat caused some anxiety and some unrest and fear in the victim. And that's specifically what happened in this case. And however you want to interpret the correspondence, in any event, the victim felt that they were frightened for their safety. They were specifically mentioned in this email, and as a result, we notified Amherst PD, who arrested that suspect, and she was arraigned at Rentham District Court. We also notified the FBI as part of this investigation, just because of some other issues that were mentioned in this specific suspect's past. A disturbance, officers responded to a disturbance at a location. There was a heated argument with two people shopping that bumped into each other. We were able to go there, separate both parties, and peace was restored. Suspicious motor vehicle. While being checked for a male party who was sleeping in their vehicle. This was on Main Street. There was an individual who had been falling asleep in their vehicle. We were able to get a hold of somebody to come pick him up and remove that vehicle for the night. July 7th, a well-being, a mostly disturbed person call, 12 to 8 shift, responded to an area in East Walpole. There was a person that was suffering some mostly disturbed person type of situation and had run off into the woods, and officers had to set up a perimeter. They were able to locate her and then conduct a section to the hospital. Missing person. The individual reported that they missing a missing person, and as a result, what I've done is I have the bulletin, and I'm just going to hold the picture up real quick so that you can see that. And this person is from Walpole. He's identified as Daniel Barrett. He's about 57 years of age. He's about 5'8". He's thin, about 135 pounds, Caucasian male. And he walks with a kind of a hunched over posture due to some back issues. But the family is very concerned about Daniel. He's been missing for a few weeks now. And we've received some information that they've cited Daniel in certain areas, including Walpole, including areas in Boston. However, we haven't been able to locate him. He left some of his property in his home and just kind of left. So at this point, we're trying to locate him. If you see Daniel around Walpole or any other community, he's very likely out on foot, just being transient, and we would love to make contact with him and, hopefully see if he needs some help and help him if he does, and also help the family so that they can feel relaxed that he's okay. So if anybody sees Daniel, please contact the Walpole Police Department. Missing, so that covered that. Mostly disturbed person call. Officer Kevlich in Slavin responded to Washington Street. This was suicidal ideation, and that individual was taken to the hospital after a section. The next few incidents, disturbance, and disturbance calls. One was off of Mass Ave. Officers Slavin and Haber responded to investigate. It was a report of a loud argument. This was unfounded, and people were gone on arrival. There was a loud house party in North Walpole. Officer Lagoa responded, spoke to the homeowners who kept things down. Report of fireworks in the area of Plain Street. Individuals spoken to by Officer Dolan. Noise complaint down in South Walpole. There was a small gathering, some loud music. Officer Dolan and Slavin responded there and asked to quiet down. So you can see the trend. It's summertime. People are out in their yards and they're celebrating and hopefully enjoying their summer. We do, at this time, we do get a lot of the noise complaints type of thing, the quality of life issues that we'll get calls for and go down, and 99.9% of the time people are very good, and they they just abide by keeping the music down or doing whatever so they don't upset their neighbors. ATV and dirt bikes. Brown Drive resident reported 2 dirt bikes on the roadway. Officer Slavin responded and spoke to those individuals. And a crash, a pole down motor vehicle crash. This was on Production Road, Industrial Road. Fortunately, there was no personal injury involved in this crash. It was a single motor vehicle into an Eversource pole. The pole came down, power was out. Officer Slavin, Giblin, and Haber arrived on that scene to investigate. And so that somewhat covers it. The last thing is this happened on the 9th, July 9th. There was a drug arrest. This was conducted by the Norfolk County Police Anti-Crime Task Force, also known as NORPAC, which also involves Walpole police detectives. And there was a search warrant for a motor vehicle that had been involved in some drug transactions that have occurred in and around our area. This investigation started in Needham, and then some of it overflowed into Norwood, and then Walpole, ultimately, where there was a distribution of drugs that was observed by detectives. They stopped this motor vehicle on Route 1, and as a result of that stop, an individual, 23-year-old from Dorchester, was arrested and booked at Walpole PD. As a result of the search warrant, detectives seized 23 grams of fentanyl. This 23 grams of fentanyl is twice the trafficking weight of 10 grams, and 13 grams of crack cocaine, which is just below the trafficking threshold of 14 grams. This, just to mention that distribution or trafficking of fentanyl now in Massachusetts carries a 3.5-year minimum mandatory sentence just for that. So the detectives did an amazing job, great stop. They executed it very well, and as a result, that vehicle was towed back to the Walpole Police Station. They did seize some money, the vehicle, and the drugs that were involved. And as always, we appreciate their efforts for going after drug dealers relentlessly and removing the poison, these bad drugs that are killing people here in Massachusetts. And so they have to be commended for a job well done there. All right, so that's it, July 10th, 2018, and I'm Chief John Carmichael, and I will see you next time on Walpole 5-0. Thank you.